Dig Dug, one of these foundations of the Japanese arcade industry, was a rip-off of a game built on a kitchen cabinet in Bridlington.
Welcome back, Arcadians.
Hello, Cave Dwellers. We've got a really special episode for you today. It features piracy on an industrial scale. Sega pops up in this story. And it's all about a British company who you may never have heard of, but they absolutely dominated the arcades in the 60s, the 70s, and going into the 80s.
Yes, and it is a story of a British company called ALCA. And we invited Alan Meades here into the cave to do a talk on this amazing company. And also we're going to be going down to the repair shop to look at some of the very early examples from this company.
Yeah, we're really lucky to own many of the cabinets that come up in conversation today. And we were really lucky to have Dr. Alan Meades, he is a doctor of video gaming, come to give this talk. He gives a really great presentation. So without further ado, let's get stuck into the presentation and we'll cut back a bit later as we get down to the repair shop to see some of those cabinets.
Cool.
ALCA really matter. If you remember anything from today, apart from Alan just goes on, it's ALCA. ALCA is something special. But I can't tell you the story of ALCA until I've told you the story of Mayfield. Who's heard of Mayfield? Even better, that's good. So here we go. Mayfield, think about Mayfield as, what are they? I don't know what I'm saying. It's some kind of knockoff brand. So on the left, we have Sega's Periscope. So we were talking a lot about this downstairs, about the flexibility of licensing of machines and the ownership of machines. So strange stuff happens sometimes. So here we go. Sega stroke Namco's Periscope, which, let's say, for you, ladies and gentlemen, 250 quid, or probably 300 quid. And here we go. We have Mayfield Electronic Submarine Patrol, 200 quid. So Mayfield were in the game of taking electro-mechanical arcade games and making them better and cheaper. And in England. So this is a whole thing that happened within the amusements industry all the way back to the first patents in like the mid 1860s, stealing other people's designs and making them better and cheaper. And there's a chap who's behind Mayfield, a chap called Jeff Ellis, who will come up later on. Think about him as an expert engineer who could take the shoddy stuff that Namco or Sega made and make it better and smarter. But yeah, Mayfield's head was a chap called Eddie Carter. It's a cool dude. There he is. He's playing on their version of Periscope. Eddie Carter. Eddie Carter had a son called Alan Carter. And Alan Carter thought that he was kind of the next mover and shaker within the amusements industry. There's some suggestions that he had a few arguments with his dad. And Alan set up a company called ALCA, and it's Alan, A-L, Carter, C-A. And ALCA essentially was going to be Mayfield Mark II. Screw you, Dad. I'm setting up my own company, doing the same thing, and it's going to be making cool stuff. And ALCA made, again, copies of other people's games and often made them better. So we have ALCA Space Gunner and Tank Assault. And this was the kind of stuff that ALCA started off doing. Now, something strange happened with ALCA in the sense that Alan left the company. Alan Carter left. And then Eddie Carter joined. So screw you, Dad, I'm setting up a new company. He probably didn't say, screw you, Dad, I'm setting up a company. But the son's company was then taken over by the dad. Mysterious. But anyway, ALCA existed. Here's a great game, Sega Missile. You aware of this game? Or probably Namco Missile, you're going to say now. I think and then ALCA produced, or rather Jeff Ellis, the expert engineer for Mayfield, who's now working for ALCA, produced this version called Super Missile. And apparently Super Missile is so much better than the Sega machine that it sells so much better, and the Sega machine doesn't really make a dent in the British industry. So think about Mayfield and think about ALCA as the plucky British copyright exploiting kind of, we will make a copy of this game, we'll use British engineering kind of to make something better than the Japanese or the Americans. And they did it time and time and time again. It wouldn't wash now with patents and kind of copyright law, but it did then. So ALCA set themselves up, interestingly, in King's Mill in Royton in Oldham, so just outside Manchester. And up until this point, the beating heart of the amusement industry in the UK has been London. If you were based in Manchester and you wanted to buy an arcade machine, where'd you have to go to see it? London. If you were based down in Cornwall, get your ass up to London if you want to see a machine. And this was infuriating. But ALCA were kind of devised as being a company to unsettle that and put Manchester on the map. And we have some bad scans of the workshop, the King's Mill workshop, where they were making tank assault shooters there. And the other thing to bear in mind is ALCA and Mayfield were the manufacturers, but they weren't selling the games. The company that was selling the games was Phonographic Ruffler and Walker, or Phonographic Equipment, or Associated Leisure. Do you know those? Heard of those names? So these guys were the biggest, the most powerful kind of distribution company in the UK. My book tells you all about their history and how they kind of came about. It's very interesting. And the mafia stuff that happened as well, and really shook it to the core. But yeah, essentially, if you wanted to sell your game, Phonographic Equipment were the company you wanted on board, because then it would actually sell. They'd get your stuff everywhere. And a lot of that was due to this guy. This cheeky chappie up here is Michael Green, or Mike Green, who passed away in 2017, I think. And Mike Green matters quite a lot. Here we go, here's Mike Green in probably 66 or 68. So this guy has been with Phonographic Equipment since almost day one. He's worked all his way through it, and yeah, Mike Green is a really good guy, or he was a really good guy. But the idea was, if you were selling your game through Phonographic Equipment, it was Mike Green who was shaking the handshakes, finding the deals. This guy was connected with everyone around the world, really. So he was in America all the time. He was in Japan all the time. He made the deals. And here we go. Here he is at the funky named Incomat 70. I don't know where that was. I think it's probably Belgium or something like that. And who's he next to? He's next to Eddie Carter, Mr. ALCA. And it's almost as if they're forming a partnership at this point. So here we go. We have ALCA's Target UFO, which did really incredibly well. This is a game you sit down and you rotate it, and you can see UFOs that you can blow up. And here it is. Here's it being marketed by Phonographic, Ruffler and Walker. So if Phonographic liked your machine, if Mike Green approved things and shook the handshake, your game would be anywhere and it would get sold. We're talking big numbers, big units. In fact, Target UFO was so good that it was exported out to the States. It was a really good thing. And Jeff Ellis, the engineer from Mayfield, he's credited with creating a two-way mirror that enabled this to work and would be so much cheaper than any equivalent. Right, let's get more shady. Wow. Okay, Mike Green. I've introduced you to Mike Green, the cheeky chappie who can get your game anywhere. Next to him is Martin Bromley. Who knows Marty Bromley? Marty Bromley started Segasa, or Sega really. I won't say too much about that, but I'll just say Martin Bromley started Sega. That's the easy way to put it. It's a bit more complicated because there's a US firm called Sega and there's a Japanese firm called Sega, and they get intertwined at different points. But Martin Bromley, from the Second World War, from the start of the Second World War through to 1970, is the international kingpin of arcades. I'm picking my words carefully and looking at Alex to try and figure out if it's the right way of putting it. Yeah, America, Japan, he helped set up the company in Japan. He's in the Philippines, he's in Vietnam, doing lots of stuff. All his machines are going into American military bases through every single conflict and making lots of money. Again, choosing my words carefully. In 1969, he's given 10 million US dollars by Gulf Western, who buy Sega from him. I don't know what that will be worth in money now, but an awful lot of money. So in 1969, Martin Bromley is incredibly rich. So I don't know, he goes on a cruise for a while, he flies around the world a few times. He decides to set up apparently buys a penthouse in London and stuff like that. He decides London is the place for him. And very rich man, very influential, known by everyone in the arcade. And what he does is he decides, well, what he does actually is he phones up Mike Green. Easter 1972, Mike Green gets a phone call. Hi Mike, you're coming to work for me. So Mike Green is director of phonographic Ruffle and Walker at this point. You're coming to work for me, I'll pay whatever you need, and I'm setting up a company, or I'm buying out ALCA. And so, yeah, this is the organisation. We've got Martin Bromley, who has all the money in the world and all the contacts in the world. We have Jeff Ellis, the mastermind engineer. We have Mike Green, the best salesman going. And we have Eddie Carter, who's been brought along for the ride as well. No, I'm assuming he brings through the kind of, manufacturing nous and all that kind of stuff. But this is ALCA. And ALCA are now going to keep doing their game, which is copying your games, but cheaper, with the power of Michael Green's contacts, Martin Bromley's money. Like it's the perfect company. And they rinse the industry, basically. They destroy it. So here you go. ALCA hit the big time. 444,000 square feet of factory in Oldham, multi-distributorships. October 72, they're announced. This company that you've never heard of basically takes over the world. And as I said, they're based up in Oldham, and they create this big thing about, you don't have to go to London. You can come to Manchester. We will serve you from all around the UK. So they're really tipping the British industry on its head. They have deals with Ace and Brenco and Cromptons and Streets and Whittaker Brothers and Mayfair and Jupiter and Sega. They've got everyone. They'll sell you stuff, they'll make you stuff, and if they don't like you, they'll copy it and sell it anyway. So, this is kind of what this means. And here we go. Here's a golden Bromley. He's golden. He's got so much money and so many contacts that even if he's stealing your game and his company is copying it, hey, that's just the way it goes. That's just my reading of it. That could be completely wrong and slanderous, but I've got this kind of feeling that this is what was happening. He was so rich, so affluent, so well connected that as long as you were getting some money, you were okay. So yeah, the golden Bromley. And then this is what we get. We start getting ALCA machines. So, what's this? The arcade exhibition in America, where who we have here? We've got Ted Dabney, Nolan Bushnell, Fred Marinchik and Al Alcorn showing off Pong. So Pong is unveiled to the world. Funny enough, Mike Green is at this show because he's an international kind of man of mystery. He's everywhere. This photo wasn't taken at the show, but you get the idea. Pong comes along. And Mike Green is told by Sam Stern that, you need to get yourself a Pong board. You need to get yourself a Pong board pronto and see if it makes sense. So what happens is that ALCA end up getting hold of a Pong PCB. I don't know how that happens. And they end up putting it at the Northern Amusement Equipment and Coin Operated Machine Exhibition in February 1973. It's on their second stand because, it's just weird. They just cram it into a random cab that they have, a fruit machine cab that they kind of jury rig to get it to work. And the kind of story. Everyone was interested in the stuff that was on the second stand. So Mike Green knows now that he has to do something about it. Overnight, he charters, or he gets his tickets to go to the States because he's told the contact details of allegedly the company that's making those boards. He flies out to Boston, that was what he told me where it was, and he buys 300 Pong boards for the price of $150 each. The transaction costs $45,000. He says he was petrified, that it was kind of the worst thing he's ever done, but he made lots of money out of it.
So ALCA has formed at this point. What it lacks in morals, it's making up for with money, with experience in business and with connections. And they actually beat Atari to market here in the UK with their own game, with Pong, as you heard in the story there. And came up with a machine that's really important, and we're lucky enough to have it, aren't we?
Yeah, because I think there's only two in existence. This is ALCA's Ping Pong, which makes it Britain's first video game. So I'm really chuffed to get this in the museum.
Yeah, I was amazed when it turned up.
Yeah.
Just tell us, how did you come by this machine?
Well, when it comes to arcade games, I've got a good memory. My partner would say I've got a really bad memory when it comes to everything else, but arcade games, I seem to remember where every game has been bought and sold on UK VAC. So I remember this popping up years ago, so I knew it was out there somewhere. And I just went back to the forum and just found out who owned it and contacted the owner. It back
because you specifically wanted to get hold of this cabinet.
I did, yeah, because I want to tell the history of Britain's arcades, which, you know, Alan's doing great with this book, but it'd be nice to have it in physical presence in a museum.
Yeah, and I think it's off the back of reading Alan's book, really, that it jogged your memory, didn't it? And you thought, well, I've just opened an arcade museum. This is the perfect item to represent the start of British arcade games. So we're really lucky to have it here in the Arcade Archive. We're going to pop down to the repair shop now and take a closer look at that cabinet. And you asked Alan a specific question, didn't you?
I asked Alan whether he thought ALCA thought that video games were the future for the arcades.
Let's see what he has to say.
Yeah, I don't think they did. So this was seen as a product.
Yeah.
So it wasn't seen as the beginning of a genre. It was seen as a tennis machine. Just in the same way, I don't know, there might be a Daffy Duck Kiddies Ride that was popular for a while, or a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Crane, or something like that. It was seen as a thing.
A one-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I spoke to quite a few people in the industry that said they thought it might last for 2 or 3 years, and then that was that. In fact, the view after the Pongs and the Ping Pongs and all the different tennis games had been and gone was that video is over. Now let's go back to pool or pushers or something like that. So it was a novelty more than anything.
So this is, we think this is the Ping Pong, the first version they made. They did
Mark
make
I.
a Mark II, didn't they?
Yeah, the blue one.
With an extra coin slot. So we've got 5p and 10p here. So do you think this could be the Mark II?
I don't know. So it's difficult. This seems to look just like the adverts that were in 73. So I think we could say this is probably a Mark I. But the suspicious thing is the 5 and 10p. So I guess we don't know until we look at the schematics and stuff like that. And it
looks completely different than the Atari Pong. They changed the name because Pong obviously associated with the smell.
Yeah.
And added the ping.
That was literally what Atari said. So they said they weren't prepared to call it Pong in the UK because it was a bad smell. They didn't want that connotation. They then looked at calling it Wimbledon. In fact, they released it as Wimbledon
they did.
after a while. But there was so much dithering and uncertainty. They used a relatively unknown distributor was given the license. I think it was CW Electronics or something like that, based in the Midlands, and it was just out of kilter with what happened before. The smart money would have been to have gone with phonographic, Ruffler and Walker, and then you know, Pong would have been everywhere, and Ping Pong wouldn't have happened, but they didn't.
They assembled this really quickly, got it out before Atari, 6 months before.
Yeah, that's right.
I know ALCA were making electro-mechanical games, but they probably hadn't worked with CRTs before. They had to go to Ferguson, get a deal with Ferguson, get their TVs in there, and it doesn't fit.
No,
so what's the story behind that?
Well, there's a couple of things here. So nobody really knows because no one documented this kind of stuff. But my gut feeling is that by looking at the side of the machine, this resembles, certainly from the sides, the edges, the edging, and this kind of lip, it looks like an Ace 1970s fruit machine.
Fruit machine.
So I think it's higher. It's higher than a. So I think from here downwards, certainly the sides, it's a pucker, carry-on film 1970s fruit machine. In fact, even the playing height feels right. So yeah, these are fruit machines that were designed at that level. They wanted to get this out as quickly as possible because every day Atari would be getting closer.
Yeah.
So
which makes sense why the tuner was cut off.
Just get us a load of tellies.
So at the back
fit them into this. We can do it.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
The telly doesn't fit. Cut the back off.
Yeah.
What about the tube? Oh, it's okay. It doesn't cut the tube off.
Yeah.
It cuts the tuner off. Brilliant. We'll sell them back to an electronics firm in Manchester.
What a fantastic machine. And as you saw down there, we have also got Atari's Pong in the arcade archive. So you can come and see Ping Pong. You can come and see Atari's Pong. Atari's Pong is working, but our Ping Pong isn't yet, is it?
No, we haven't actually powered it up yet, but I would imagine there's not too much to get it working.
Yeah. It's such a special machine. Alex will be making an episode on it on his Arcade Archive channel. And we just want to power it up under very controlled conditions, check it over, not just put the power into it and see what goes pop. So you can join us. Alex has made an initial inspection video, haven't you?
Yeah, we did a state of play on the machine.
Yeah.
Just telling a little bit of the history of it, but yeah, can't wait to do a part 2 when we power it up.
So we'll just finish that restoration of Key Games or Atari Sprint 2 that you're working on, and then there'll be a future episode. So go and subscribe to Alex's channel so you can follow that, because that will be popping up sometime in the new year.
Definitely.
Right, let's get back to Alan and let's see what happened next with ALCA.
So here we go. Ping Pong, of which there's a ping pong downstairs, which is absolutely fantastic, is up for sale. April 1973. It's advertised and available to buy via coin slot. That's 6 months before Atari's Pong or Atari's Wimbledon, or whatever they decided to call it in the end, finally came to the UK. And they sell loads of these machines and they charge £395 each. So about $6,000 today. And there we go. So yeah, they beat Atari to the UK by 6 months. And ALCA don't stop there. They're on a roll. So they will exploit any opportunity that they see. They do smart business. So yeah, we've got other machines. So Jeff Ellis keeps making those electro-mechanical machines. But the market moves on a bit, doesn't it? So EMs are not the future. More EMs, they're puppet machine. If you've ever seen one of these weird machines, has anyone spotted these? You put the money in, all the characters kind of do their creepy dance and stuff. So they didn't just do video games, they did kind of electromechanical entertainments. They made fruit machines as well. They became the major investor and funder of pool tables. They sponsored a major league. So the growth of pool tables and pool culture in Britain in the 70s is ALCA. It's wholly ALCA. And it's Mike Green as well. They sponsored a TV show for a while as well, I believe. Anyway, and yet they moved back into video games when video games become kind of cool again. So here we go, early 1980s, 1981. And here we go, downstairs, we've got the golden Bromley, the power of Bromley up there, which means that they are able to make machines. So let's start the other way round. So we have a Gremlin Sega licensed Carnival video game. It's there. It's an official machine. It's got a license. It's all good. Then we have a Roadrunner. And Roadrunner is Rally X, made by Namco in the late 80s. But it's not called Rally X, it's called Roadrunner. And we have Bomber, which is really Scramble. So what we've got here is a licensed game on the far side. And then we have two dodgy, copied, unlicensed games. At this point, ALCA were sponsoring pool, so they'd focused massively in pool tables. They had electromechanical machines as well, so the amusements and stuff like that. They'd also been producing quite a few fruit machines. They're getting back into video games. Now, ALCA had a number of subsidiaries. So there was kind of ALCA, the manufacturing side, but then there was also ALCA, the operating side.
Right.
So the manufacturing side, you're selling games to people. And that's great, you're making money, but when loads of people are selling it, you're all trying to get a share of that money. So their operating arm, as far as I understand, had quite a lot of clout in and around Manchester. So we're talking about bars and clubs and pubs and bowling alleys, but it was lots and lots of pubs. So they were siting machines in the pubs, and as they had a sole license to operate a machine somewhere, they just put a machine. Hey, we've got a machine to put in your pub. It's great. Your punters are going to love it. What's it called? Roadrunner. Great. And so I think the people owning the pub, they weren't involved in the decision of what it was, and ALCA just put the machines in. So it's an unlicensed machine.
And this is a licensed carnival machine, which I would imagine is the connection Martin Bromley had with Sega, right? Did he manage to get some of the Sega games before anyone else and get the license here in the UK?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that bit. But so Martin Bromley and ALCA had, well, they were a big company. So you'd want to deal with ALCA if you were a manufacturer because they will buy your stuff. Also, the whole manufacturing industry is struggling at this point. So Sega or Sega Gremlin at that point wanted your boards or wanted you to buy their boards even. So, my view is that through Martin Bromley's connections, through the fact that they had the money, these were licensed boards, so they got them through Sega. Whether or not they paid the market rate, who knows?
Who knows? So, well, they had a great lineup here, different size cabinets. We don't have all of them here. I think there's a cocktail. They made a cocktail version as well. So I think they advertised this as, or that one is the deluxe, I think it was. That one's the little cabaret, the little mini. So they're trying different things with the different cabinets.
So we've also got the difference in the ALCA art. So ALCA originally logo. Had this great...
Why did they change the logo?
I don't know. I think they just wanted ninja stars in there. Yeah, so it goes into this strange triangular thing. I guess it feels more 80s, whereas that feels more 1970s. I don't know what was going on, but my speculation is that it's the power of the golden Bromley. He's still got his links with Sega, or whichever version of Sega. He's still all powerful. So yeah, they get the licensed version of Sega games and everything's cool. But I think the other companies, Konami and Namco, can basically go swivel because he's got all the money and all the power. Now, we should say that copyright law for games hasn't fully been established now. So it isn't that they're completely in the wrong. They might morally be in the wrong, but in terms of law, that they're not. Jeff Ellis leaves, so things are starting to go wrong in 1981. So Jeff Ellis is gone. And just to give you an idea, we've got games being copied. Copying games is a thing.
Hidden in leafy Surbiton was a major threat to the industry. One-time microchip pirate John Richards.
If we wanted to make a direct copy of, say, this game, all we would do, we would take one of these chips out and they actually plug in. We would place it in a machine like this, which is called a gangbanger, enter some keys and copy it into the computer inside the board, and then copy it back to 8 blank memories, and then within 3 minutes they would contain the new program.
It cost John just £30 to copy 8 chips, which he sold to arcade owners at a fraction of the legitimate price. And by making slight changes to original programs, he claims he created new games. Here at Lincoln's Inn Fields, 2 men are winning the battle against the pirates. Defenders of the microchip, experts in computer law, barrister Graham Shipley and solicitor Gordon Day. A sort of thinking man's Starsky and Hutch. But no flashy heroics for them. They're code breakers who catch pirates by studying computer printouts.
This on the right is the copy from the Pirate program, and the other 2 are different versions of the genuine product. And you can see, other than the characters which are highlighted in yellow, the listings are in fact identical.
But how great a change must a pirate make to avoid charges of plagiarism and outwit the defenders? Playing for the manufacturers is programmer turned barrister Graham Shipley, protector of the EPRON, defender of copyright law.
Yeah, let's leave that one there. So I should have introduced that a bit better. This was what was going on. People were copying games, people were editing games. There was no copyright. Copyright hadn't been proven in the UK. It was about to be by that very man at the beginning. So John Richards ended up going to the High Court to defend his case. He lost it and copyright applied to video games. But with that happening in the backdrop, if you were running a company, if you were making very little money out of your arcade machines, you were not going to be paying for legitimate boards when you could upgrade your existing boards and it would cost you 30 quid from John Richards. So the whole industry was beginning to fall to its knees in about 81. Too many machines, too many games. People were not making money, so kind of corners were being cut. So here we go. June 1981, writing on the wall for video game operating, upwards inflection because it was a question. So the national trade press, or the trade press is saying, hang about, video games aren't working. Nobody's making any money. There is a problem. Now, somebody fixed this, but I won't go into it. And also I'm saying, this is confusing, 10 weeks. This is the beginning of 10 weeks. So 10 weeks later, this happens. Martin Bromley is implicated in the largest ever tax fraud case at that point in the UK. Basically, a consortium of arcades had been miscounting and misreporting the money that had been coming through their doors, including a bunch of pretty major arcades in London. This causes problems. Those 10 weeks, that June 1981, was the beginning of when Martin Bromley's finances were frozen by Customs and Excise. So what happened was Martin Bromley settled the fee by paying £2.7 million like that. But we're talking about someone who had been Golden Bromley, the man of the industry, who is now implicated in the largest ever VAT fraud case in British kind of history. So do you, Sega, now want to keep trading with this dude? No, you don't. So all of his bridges are burnt. So this is the beginning of the end for ALCA and for kind of ALCA's associates, because ALCA is reliant on Bromley's money because games aren't making any money at this point. His finances were frozen for 10 weeks, so they're already 10 weeks into the hole. ALCA starts selling their machines pretty quickly. They have flash sales a little bit later on in the year. But this is the issue. There's no financial support from Bromley. So Bromley's assets have been frozen. Then when he's paid stuff off, he's not interested in spending any more money. No bank is going to lend you any money because you're not getting any return on your machines, and you're probably criminals now because, hey, there was that largest VAT fraud case. And the whole industry gets really, really problematic. In the end, well, how about this? Sega Europe, a new spin-off company that starts in, I believe, 1980, announces that it's taking ALCA to court. It's accusing ALCA of copyright theft. What's happened is that ALCA have taken some licensed copies of Frogger and then have copied them, loads and loads of copies, and put them into their machines. So I'm assuming that this kind of stuff may have been happening before, but we never knew because the power of Bromley was kind of stopping people looking at. So they're buying 10 machines or 10 boards, they're copying 200 or something like that. Now in the coin slot archive that I've got, there's a lot of discussion about the Italian trade shows and how disgusted people were that they saw so many different copies and boots. Now that kind of thing did happen in England as well, but I was told that a manufacturer had the right to demand someone would open a machine and show the board, and that there were cases where Anton pillar orders, which was where your hardware could be confiscated, were applied at a trade show. So here you go. I'm Mr. Sega. I'm coming out. Hey, this bomber.
But they wouldn't have had that at a trade show, though, would they?
Some companies would.
They would have had a deliberately bootleg cabinet at a trade show.
Alan L's new company was set up in 1981. You know someone who does kitchen cabinets. Yeah. I know someone who's got a skip load of tellies. If we decided to do that and we want to make the money, we might rock up to a trade show and say, this is our bomber or our, I don't know, scrumble or something like that. And so people...
Scrumble?
People did, Apple scrumble.
It's almost as bad as this, knockout.
Well, yes, it's that same kind of thing. But apparently people were forced to...
Yeah.
And how about this? I interviewed one chap who was from a reputable company who knew that they had some dodgy boards, and they were asked to open them. And they looked in them and said, everything's fine here. So...
wow.
He said that he was really quite worried, and they looked at it, and it was like, no, that all checks out. So a copy that wasn't even spotted. So I think that was actually overstock from
Yeah.
a manufacturing line. So
Right, okay.
when they were manufacturing PCBs, they understood that, there might be 5%, 10% wastage, and then also they crank the production line for another couple of hours. And I think that some production lines, it was like a bonus for the staff, one for you, one for me, that kind of thing. And those would be some of the boards that then went onto the grey market or the black market, or found their way over here. So I think what you have is almost a only fools and horses kind of boom and bust approach to the industry at first.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, we've invented an industry. Oh my God, there's this thing. We're going to go and buy this stuff. And wow, we've made millions. Next year we'll be millionaires. And then eventually you move around to electrocoin, and then you've got prudent business stuff. So I think it's a professionalization of a market that values intellectual property, copyright, and forging long-term relationships with companies across the globe. Whereas I think here it was just a bit more, whoa, here's a thing, we can sell it.
Yeah.
I think
Quick buck.
Yeah, I think that's it. So what has been learnt, that the way to do business is transparently and openly, and forging kind of good working relationships. So this is the sad end. In August 1982, ALCA die. The plug is pulled, there's no more Bromley money, no more money is made, and ALCA go belly up. That's the end of the company that beat Atari to the British trade. That's probably the end. Please help yourself to comics. Please ask any questions. Apologies for rambling on for far too long, but thank you.
And so falls ALCA, a company with all the experience in the world that looked like it couldn't possibly fail, but copyright law caught up with technology, and good old tax fraud played a part in the story as well. So
massively.
When they fell very quickly. That's the end of our story today about ALCA. There's a hell of a lot more to learn in Alan's book, where he covers that. And on the day when he came and gave the talk, he covered so much, didn't he?
Oh, he did, yeah. And he kindly donated us an original PCB of the Pit.
Yeah.
Which is quite an unusual game, a little bit different.
Let's not spoil it, because we've got a little bit of extra footage for you in just a moment, where Alan's going to explain why he donated the Pit and what's so special about it. So we'll get to that in just a second. If you want to hear more about the history of British arcades, then I think we both highly recommend Alan's book, Arcade Britannia. It's a fantastic read, isn't it?
And his YouTube channel, we've done like a virtual tour of what a British arcade used to look like. So check that out as well.
Yeah, he made a British arcade in the Unreal Engine.
Yes,
so
brilliant.
You can even explore it in virtual reality. So go and check it all out. Alan is a huge credit to the scene, and brings a wealth of knowledge, so much that I didn't know before I read his book. So do go and check that out. We're not being paid to promote it. Honestly,
it's
just a good book.
Fascinating stuff. I mean, I didn't put that book down.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So thank you again to Alan for coming. Thank you everyone for watching, and just enjoy this extra bit of information about the Pit. And hopefully in the near future, if you're lucky enough to be able to come and visit, you can come and try the Pit out. You can come and try ping pong, Atari's Pong, and everything else that Alex has to offer down in the Arcade Archive. Find all the links in the video description, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Well, Alan, you kindly donated the Pit.
Yeah.
Don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
So just to let people know, so the Pit was designed, so the Pit is a video game designed in the UK, designed by Andy Walker. So the Pit is based on, so imagine, we've had these video games that talk about kind of American culture and stuff like that. The Pit was based on Quatermass and the Pit. Those of you who kind of might know, Quatermass and the Pit was a television series and series of films in the 50s and the 60s that they tell the story of, I think it's Professor Quatermass, and Quatermass and the Pit, the TV series, starts in a part of London where they're dealing with all the bomb craters in central London, and people keep getting the heebie-jeebies in this part of London. And it turns out that the thing that's causing the heebie-jeebies is either the devil, or it's dead baby aliens from millions of years ago, who are perhaps the source of all human life, and who might also be the devil. And it kind of unveils over a few episodes and gets really creepy and horrible.
Good basis for a game, right?
Great, great. So Andy Walker remembers watching this program, and he loved it so much, and he thought, now that would make the great background for a game. But let's spin it in with Indiana Jones. So you're going into a place in space, you're landing on a planet, and you're going to steal their kind of space alien babies and their gems and stuff. So you're a bad guy. But anyway, that's a bit random. Yeah, The Pit is a great game. It was shown at a preview, and the story goes that a bunch of Japanese kind of potential buyers came to see it, and Andy explained they hadn't yet programmed the second stage where you blow up the dragon. He never did that. It got licensed by Century. It got released in America. It got released in Japan. But what happened was just before it was going to be released in America, Andy Walker was subject to a cease and desist, a court case from Atari, who'd got the license. Basically they were saying that this game called Dig Dug, that Andy Walker had copied Dig Dug. The suggestion is that at the trade fair, when he'd explained to these Japanese gentlemen that you blow up the dragon, they'd written it down as inflate and blow up. And if you've ever played Dig Dug, there's an enemy, the dragon, that you kill by blowing it up until it pops. Luckily, the deal with Century and Joel Hochberg there, I think it's Century, I might be getting muddled up. But anyway, the American deal, the requirement was that it had to be copyrighted, because you could copyright those boards then in America. And the court case was killed because Andy Walker's copyright was 3 weeks before the Dig Dug one. So that was quietly dropped. But it's an example of a British game that was exported to the States, was exported to Japan, did okay over here. And more importantly, Dig Dug potentially, Dig Dug, one of these foundations of the Japanese arcade industry, was a rip-off of a game built on a kitchen cabinet in Bridlington. Yeah.
He went on to make a program for home consoles, didn't he?
Yeah.
And do you think that's why there wasn't that many British arcade developers? So they probably saw the booming home bedroom market for...
Andy Walker worked with the Stamper Brothers, who founded Rare. Yeah. And he wrote Digger T-Rock, a game on the NES. So I think he's very close with the Stampers. He set up a Task Set, Commodore 64 developer. They did things like Pipeline 2, Bozo's Day Out, Seaside Special. So lots of really interesting British games. So he made his kind of fame on the Commodore 64, and then stuff for the NES. And then he moved into fruit machine manufacture. So he's someone that also recognises the transferable skills and the value of fruit machines and stuff like that. Well, but it's fantastic.
Well, thanks for donating. We're going to try and get that working.